Jurors in New York City have just told the judge they're unable to reach a unanimous decision on the charge of manslaughter. Penny is a former Marine and architecture student who is facing multiple charges over the death of Jordan Neely. Neely was homeless and acting erratically on a subway train last year. Then Penny put him in a chokehold. Prosecutors say that Penny intended to protect people, but that he used too much force. He has pleaded not guilty. His attorney claims that Penny acted in self-defense. NBC News correspondent Rehema Ellis is following this case for us. Rehema, this really became a flashpoint in the national debate over crime and racial injustice. Jurors have been deliberating since Tuesday morning, 3 days now. Explain what the note to the judge means for this trial. What are the next steps at this point?
Yeah, we've got a second note. Since the first note came a little bit earlier saying that they were at an impasse on question number one, and that was manslaughter in the second degree. The judge told them to go back into that room and continue deliberations. Well, out came another note, Vicky, and I'm going to read part of it to you. And the judge with the jury in the courtroom said, let me read this note. It says, we, the jury, request further clarification in the determination of when a person reasonably believes physical force to be necessary. That's the thing that they are really grappling with right now. Even yesterday, they had asked the judge and the court for the legal definition of negligence and recklessness. They are struggling with this on that first count of whether or not there was reasonable force applied or was it unreasonable. And as the prosecution is saying, that chokehold then led to Jordan Neely's death. The defense, on the other hand, has been arguing that the chokehold was not the cause of death, that there were some other medical extenuating circumstances that were responsible. So what happens next? It's unclear. Some have said perhaps they can skip the question of count one and move on to question number two, and that is criminally negligent homicide. But the way this thing is supposed to work, it doesn't work like that. They have to come to a conclusion about manslaughter, either find him guilty or not guilty, and this is all over, or not guilty, and they move to question number two. The judge is trying to decide what's going to happen, but that will be after he's once again sent them back into that room to deliberate.
And conceivably, they still have a few hours left till the day wraps for today, right, Rehema?
Absolutely. They've typically been ending shortly before 5 o'clock in the evening, in the afternoon on this, but it's hard to say what's going to happen this afternoon. They've been at this pretty much the whole week, something like almost 20 hours over 3 days. They're feeling deadlocked, despite the fact the judge is sending them back and saying, keep trying. Vicky?
Rehema Ellis, thank you so much. And for more on this, we want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Angela Cenedella. Angela, from your experience, what does this tell you about the mindset of the jury at this moment? And when the judge sends back a note or speaks to them, basically, and says, you're the best equipped, come to a decision on this, what does that do?
Okay, so look, it really is a mirror, a reflection of how I believe the country is feeling right now. And living in New York City, these are the conversations you hear. People feel so strongly on both sides. So it's not that shocking that they're in this deadlock position. I think the whole sequence of events, this predetermined requirement that they have to do count one before moving to count two is the question. So are they sitting around deciding should he be totally acquitted, or are they just divided between the charges that he should be guilty of the lesser charge and just not all agreeing on the firmer charge? But there is one thing the prosecution can do, and I believe they are considering this strongly and perhaps will do it if they're still deadlocked next week. And that is, if they don't want a total mistrial, they could just drop the first charge. If they choose to dismiss that top charge, then the jury would be forced to only deliberate on the second charge. So I believe they would possibly consider that if they think they just want any conviction and they're not too firm on that first charge.
And walk us through the penalties for both charges, because as you said, one is much more serious than the second one.
That's right. So the one they are deciding on right now is manslaughter, and that comes with it a prison sentence of up to 15 years. However, there's no minimum there. There's no mandatory minimum. And the prosecution actually said this to the jury, which made the defense kind of uncomfortable, saying they shouldn't be able to say that to the jury, that this would just be a conviction, possibly without any jail time. But now the second charge that they would then possibly move on to is just criminally negligent homicide, which would come with it only up to 4 years in jail.
Okay, and that'll be up to the judge to make that sentencing.
Yes, that's just the judge who sentences.
All right, Angela Cenedella, thank you very much for that additional legal insight.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.